everyone. Welcome back to another episode with the Crime and Coffee Couple. My name's Allison.
And my name's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Allie Buttercups, how are you sweet little muffin?
I'm good now that we're both seated and we're without mishap because Mike had a little bit of a incident. He crashed over his table.
Yeah, so this is all just, we're not professionals here. I'm trying, everything that we've done with video and audio is all learned because, we can't like hire anybody to do anything. So I was like, the microphone's being held by this little chintzy table we got on Amazon for like $20.
Yeah.
And, I just was moving it and the whole thing toppled over along with this like $500 audio processor. It's only $500. Who cares?
The good thing was your coffee wasn't on that table because that would have been a friggin' disaster.
Oh yeah, that happened to another podcast out there where the coffee spilled all over, and you're right. Look at the positives. That's what you're all about. You're always like, let's look at the positives.
I'm a silver lining kind of gal. On that note, I was just kind of scrolling through Instagram and I came across an account, and it's just this woman who lives in a van with her husband. It's van life. And her account is Sa Van Girl. Her name must be Savannah.
Any dots in there or
anything? It's SAH.VAN.girl.
Okay.
And she just has this incredibly calming presence, basically the opposite of my presence. Mine is riled up, it's high stress, high strung.
Yeah.
But she moves with such purpose and intention. And I don't know if that's like natural for her or if it's just what she does for the camera.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Like, what do you mean by purpose? And how does somebody move with purpose and intention?
So let's just say she's getting the ingredients ready for her lunch, because in their van, they do have a cookie, like they have a stove and a cooktop, and it's actually really nice. So she'll set out her ingredients. And if you're watching us on YouTube, like she'll take her cup and put it there, and it's slowly, very slowly. She doesn't seem rushed. She doesn't seem frazzled in any way. And I was reading through the comments just because I wanted to see, if other people felt as calmed as I did watching it, and everybody did. And one girl commented on something that really was true to me. She's like, "Oh, I really am trying to be more like this. I move around in my life like a crack rabbit."
Well, you are definitely a crack rabbit, I would say. You're definitely closer to a crack rabbit than slow.
Oh, absolutely.
Turtle-like. I'm more turtle-like and slow and intentional, I would say.
And you always want to stop and chat, while we're getting the podcast room set up.
Well, I want to do weird things like hug you and tell you I love you.
I'm sorry. I don't have time for that right now. There's a time, there's a place, and it ain't now.
And it's nowhere in the schedule, so I don't know when it will be. But
I'll pencil you in.
Yeah.
Mike can say I love you. We can hug.
Sometimes we hug and you're just looking around the room like, okay, what am I getting to next?
And I'm not bragging about that in any way, shape, or form.
It's terrible.
Think it's awful.
I mean, there's good parts about it for sure, because everything's done in the house all the time. But it can get to personal life. It can be a little difficult, I would say.
I think we need to go through our days with a little bit more gratitude, notice the things that are happening around us.
You are probably the person that notices things outside more than anybody I've ever known in my life. I will say that much, like sunsets and birds and things of that nature. Like a lot of times you like to just stop and be like, wow, that is beautiful.
Right.
Whereas like my dad, he wouldn't know what a sunset looked like even. Like, I don't even think he'd be able to say that because he's just always go to the next thing and whatever. So,
yeah, like we always say, I don't think he tastes his food when he eats. Our son is very much like that. You get him a meal at a restaurant, it's gone in 30 seconds. I'm like, did you even taste it?
Well, one time years ago, my parents paid for us to go on a Disney cruise, and those things are super expensive. We would never pay for that. And my dad was out in the balcony, and it was like a beautiful sunrise or sunset or something.
It was a sunrise, I believe.
Yeah, beautiful, like absolutely gorgeous, out in the balcony, nothing but water and beautiful sunset. And my dad's just like, okay, well, I got to figure out the Uber when we get home. And it was like the first sunset or sunrise, and we were like, Dad, this is a gorgeous thing, and you're like worried about like 4 days from now when you got to get picked up for an Uber.
He had his back to the sunrise the entire time it was coming up, and I even said, Papa, you need to turn around, enjoy this. He never turned around or enjoyed it.
Nah, he's a great guy. He's a very happy-go-lucky guy. So I mean, whatever, but everybody's different.
One of the nicest people I've ever met, that Lenny.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
But we're getting into the swing of our new life here with the kids back in school. It's been absolute chaos. There's school buses, and I don't know if other parts of the United States or the world are like what we're experiencing in our suburb of Tampa, but the school buses here are insane. Our son's bus is supposed to pick him up at 6:06 in the morning. One would think That is the first stop of the day or the first run of the day. His bus has been an hour late every day thus far.
I think it's doing another route where there isn't a driver or something. So it does an early route and then a second early route. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on. If you're experiencing bus problems here in Florida, we don't fund education quite a bit.
Education,
yeah.
schmeducation.
It's not important. You can figure it out on ChatGPT. But yeah, it's been a tough gig. But
and our daughter took 2 hours to get home. Her school's about 7-10 minutes from home. It took her 2 hours to get home from school on her first day of school. So it's been interesting, but it's been good getting the day started early. And I'm more active and exercising more than I usually do.
Yeah, you are.
The kids aren't in school. So
Me
that's
too.
good.
It's crazy. You mentioned it, how weird it is that we're more on a schedule, and I'm working out way more than I used to in the whole summertime. Like I'm getting up and working out in the morning instead of like I had all the time in the world and I just wouldn't.
That's the problem. It wasn't structured in the morning.
And now I'm getting up 5:30 well, actually I'm waking up at 5:30, looking at the text messages being like, your son's bus is 40 minutes late. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll sleep another 20 minutes because Allison's going to be working out. So, but yeah, actually working out, like I like the structure. I like
it is good. I thrive in structure. But on that note, shall we dive into this
one
cup
more
of
thing?
coffee?
Can I do one more thing?
Of course you may.
So we mentioned ChatGPT and my TikTok account. Somebody from CBS Mornings was like, hey, can I use one of your videos? I was like, absolutely. It was about me talking about the kids using ChatGPT or AI in general for their homeworks. And I was just like, well, my TikTok was really like, if they're using it, I think they should, because they're going to have to use it in their working world or wherever they are. And I think school is all about just kind of getting through school. Everybody's like, it's about learning, and it is, but like in American schools, there's not a ton of learning going on. I don't think it's a lot of test taking and learning how to pass the tests. So the schools all look good. It's a terrible system in my opinion. I don't know how to change it. So I'm glad I'm not ahead of that, but
there's a lot of wasted time. I think in a 7-hour school day, it could probably be comprised to maybe 3.5 hours.
Yeah. Well, the thing is about with AI, it's like I'm working at a Fortune 500 company. My CEO and everything is all like, use AI as much as you can. And they're like giving people rewards for using it a lot. And like, there's a ranking system to see how much you're using the AI. And like, I was in the top 50 or whatever of like my group. And they're like, well, great job. I'm like, I'm just kind of using it. It's not like on purpose, but like, yeah, it's something that we're definitely using in the future. Like help the kids figure it out.
Right.
I'm happy to even go in and teach about podcasting, about this, about whatever. I realize it's hard, but like, I think it's stupid. It's kind of like calculators. Like when everyone's like, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket. And
it's like, yeah, actually I will.
we have a supercomputer in our pocket, and that's just a calculator.
Use what you have, make your life easier.
Yeah.
Is kind of your philosophy.
Yeah. And also like maybe we definitely have to change schools somehow, some way, but it's an opportunity out there. I love using AI. We just use it to figure out where we were going to go on our last cruise. It was helpful.
You use it. I don't use it as much,
right?
But
you're getting there.
I'm getting there. I'm like an old lady that's catching up with my walker.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions, let me know.
So on that note, shall we dive into
Thank
this? All right. So this is the murder of Suzanne Morphew, and this is a listener suggestion from Heather. So thank you so much, Heather. So on Mother's Day, this is Sunday, May 10th, 2020, 49-year-old Suzanne Morphew, she was meant to be home alone. That might sound a little strange because it's Mother's Day and she does have 2 daughters, but things were just going on in their life and she was alone that day. So her husband of nearly 26 years was out of town on business, and her 2 daughters were on a road trip. They were scheduled to come home sometime that evening or possibly the following morning. So, however, when Suzanne's daughters were sending their mom Mother's Day texts, phone calls, trying to wish her a happy day, they realized that she wasn't getting back to them. And this was not typical for their mom. She was normally very responsive. So as the days started to progress, they started to get more concerned. So by this point in time, one of the neighbors got involved, and this is Martin and Jean Ritter, and they called police to report Suzanne missing when there was still no sign of her at the house. So Suzanne and Barry Morphew, they met in high school where they grew up in their hometown of Alexandria, Indiana. While Barry was a star baseball player who ended up being drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays, his career did end due to an injury. Suzanne was very well liked. She was surrounded by friends. She was nominated to be homecoming queen during high school. So after they graduated from high school, they both attended Purdue University, and then they went on to get married in August of 1994. So Barry started his own landscaping business while Suzanne worked as a middle school teacher. She eventually stepped away once they had their daughter. She wanted to be there to raise them. So in 2020, Mallory was attending Western State University in Gunnison, Colorado, while their younger daughter, Macy, was 16 years old. She was still in high school. So after Mallory moved away, because of course at this point in time they were in Indiana, so their older daughter relocated to Colorado in order to attend college. And this kind of gave Suzanne and Barry the mindset shift of, hey, why not try out life in Colorado and see what that's all about? So this would be a dream of Mike's. I know that's why he's looking at me and nodding in a certain way.
Hopefully one of our kids goes to college there. We can try it.
So what they did was they decided to leave their home in Arcadia, Indiana, and relocate to be closer to their older daughter. So in April of 2018, they purchased a 3,300 square foot Salida, Colorado mountain home at 19057 Puma Path for $1.6 million. It was less than an hour away from where Mallory was attending college. So now settled in Colorado, Barry was the owner of Sunset Farms Landscaping Company. He also worked as a subcontractor for Desolin Structures, which is a general contracting company. So after Suzanne was reported missing, investigators arrived at the Morphews' home at 5:46 p.m. on that Sunday of Mother's Day. They found that the house was locked. There was no suspicious findings there. There was no sign of forced entry. So Martin and Jean Ritter, the neighbors, they told Deputy Brown, that they had gotten a phone call earlier that day from Mallory because she was concerned that she hadn't been able to get a hold of her mom that day. So she asked if they could go over to their house to check on her. And then when Jean walked over, Suzanne wasn't there. So Martin, her husband, went on to contact Barry. So Barry explained that he also wasn't home, but he hadn't been able to reach his wife that day because he was also texting and calling her to wish her a happy Mother's Day. So Barry asked Martin if he could go back over to his house, get inside, see if Suzanne's bike was there because she was an avid mountain biker ever since they relocated to Colorado. So he wanted to get the idea, did his wife leave to go out on a bike ride that day? So Martin called him back and he explained that neither Suzanne nor her bike was there, but her Range Rover was parked in the garage. So Barry asked Martin if he could call the sheriff, and that's exactly what he did. So at 7:31 that evening, investigators found Suzanne's bike down a hillside off of a dirt road between her house and Highway 50. This is less than a mile away from where they live. So based on the evidence at the scene, though, investigators came to believe that her bike had just basically been tossed in that location, just discarded there.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So there was no evidence that she had crashed her bike. It was like a deep ravine that it went down. Had she fallen down that hill,
she'd be there.
She'd be injured.
Yeah.
She'd be bleeding.
You'd see some kind of, thing like she was stepping away from it. Yeah, some kind of evidence.
Right. So there was absolutely no evidence of a crash. There were no brake marks. The vegetation around the bike wasn't flattened to suggest that she'd been laying there. There was no blood in the area. And like I said, if Suzanne didn't fall down that hill, where the heck was she? So 4 days later on May 14th, Suzanne's turquoise helmet was found. This is about 33 feet off the side of Highway 50, about a mile and a half from the Morphew home and about 0.84 miles from where her bike was located. Meanwhile, though, her sunglasses, her hydration backpack, they were found in her car, as well as her driver's license and her credit cards, but her cell phone was missing. So this reinforced investigators' beliefs that her bike and helmet had likely been planted in the areas where they were found, and they question, did Suzanne actually leave her house on Mother's Day to go for a bike ride? That's what they're trying to figure out. So shortly after Suzanne went missing, Barry took to social media. He got together with a YouTuber who recorded the interaction. And in the video, Barry was speculating that maybe while his wife was out bike riding, she got attacked by a mountain lion because they had mountain lions in that area. I mean, when I talk about where they lived in Colorado, it was very rugged and vast. There was not like house upon house and subdivision here and there. It's a mountainous, hilly, trees everywhere terrain.
I went hiking once in Colorado with a coworker, and I'll always remember he said, there's signs that say mountain lions, careful.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, I don't have to worry about it. I was like, why? He's like, I'm faster than you. So if I outrun you, they're going to get you, not me. I was like, good point.
So investigators, heard Barry say this, and they knew that the mountain lion was not feasible because had she been attacked by one, there would be evidence that this happened. So when Deputy Brown finally got a hold of Barry on Sunday at 7:10 p.m., they asked about that weekend, what had gone on. So Barry explained that he had been out and about doing things, running errands on Saturday afternoon, but he had come back to the house somewhere right around 3 p.m. He said that they had a wonderful evening together. They sat out in the sun, they chatted, they grilled steaks for dinner, they had a little sexy time.
Oh.
And then they went to sleep early, somewhere around 8 p.m. So Barry and Suzanne, they had been alone at the house since Tuesday. This is May 5th, after Suzanne drove their younger daughter, Macy, out to Gunnison so that she could go on a camping road trip with her older sister and her friend. They were going to head to Utah and Idaho. And like I said earlier, the girls had planned to be back sometime that Sunday evening, night, or Monday morning. They weren't sure. So Barry said he woke up on Sunday morning very early. It was about 4:30 in the morning. He said he left at about 5.
So this is that Sunday morning of Mother's Day.
That she gets reported missing later in the day.
This is the morning he wakes up. Sorry to cut you off. Just want to make sure. So 4:30 a.m. he wakes up.
So he left the house right around 5 a.m. for a planned work trip to Broomfield, Colorado. This is about 3 hours northeast from where they were living in Salida. He said since it was so early, his wife was still asleep. He didn't speak with her, although he did text her a couple of times that morning in order to wish her a happy Mother's Day, but she never responded to these text messages. When he texted with their daughters that day, they said the same thing. They hadn't heard back from their mom. So according to Barry, Suzanne planned to clean the house that day, get the bedrooms ready for their daughters coming back, and it was possible that one of their friends who they were out on this trip with was also going to stay there. They weren't sure. So he explained that she had recently, since they relocated to Colorado, it's such a beautiful area, she got into mountain biking, and most days she went out. So when she did go, she always wore her turquoise helmet, she wore a windbreaker, and she carried her iPhone with her. So Suzanne sadly was battling through stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. She had battled this several times in her life.
Jeez.
And her most recent battle began in 2019, 1 year earlier, when she was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma, and this is a type of blood cancer. So with this, she was actively undergoing chemo treatments.
Is that she's gotten through it before, so is that usually something that can be survivable?
It must be because she's beaten it several times.
Yeah, anytime you hear stage 4, it's scary.
It's very scary. So Barry said that when he arrived in Broomfield, he checked into his Holiday Inn where he was staying. He rested for a little bit, and then he left for the job site that he had driven out there for. So he said that when Martin Ritter, this is the neighbor, called him at about 5:15 p.m., he was actually still out on his job site. And Martin explained that, your daughters are concerned. They haven't been able to reach your wife. So investigators spoke with Morgan Gentile. This is one of Barry's employees. So she was actually scheduled to assist him with the Broomfield job. So she said the original plan was not to leave on Sunday morning. She said that they planned to drive out Sunday evening. And that would have made more sense anyway, because the case suggested that it was a little odd that Suzanne was home alone on Mother's Day, a day that, typically a mom is being celebrated.
Sure. But it's just a day. It's very special to celebrate mothers. But I always think, okay, something happens, we can always do it Monday or Tuesday.
Sure,
You don't have to do it that day.
So the plan, according to Morgan, was they were going to drive out on Sunday evening. But for whatever reason, Barry left early that morning, and they were going to drive together. He leaves his house at the crack of dawn on Sunday morning. He doesn't even tell Morgan. And then Barry later said, when he was questioned about this, that he didn't want to drive with Morgan because she was a smoker.
Okay, so basically everything is looking like Barry right now. He needs to prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt, you did not kill her and you were not there when she was gone. He left early for no reason, basically.
Right.
And this is clearly just a story. I'm not going to say he's guilty yet, but man, things are not looking good.
And anytime, a husband or wife goes missing, who are they going to look at first? They're going to look from the inside out, those closest to them. So Morgan said that Barry contacted her on Sunday afternoon or late morning, I should say, at about 11:18 to let her know that he had left without her. So when she got to the job site that evening, she noticed that Barry hadn't even brought any of the necessary tools with him. And the materials that they even needed to do anything there had yet to arrive.
So it's like he's frazzled and like there's again, no reason for him to be there yet.
Like, why are you there?
Yeah, you didn't bring what you needed. We don't have what you needed. And you're just here hanging out, not with your wife. It's like highly suspicious.
Right. So he's basically saying, I checked into the Holiday Inn, I rested for a little bit, but otherwise I was at the job site, is what he told investigators for the day, including when Martin contacted him in the 5 o'clock hour to say, hey, your daughters are concerned. So cameras at the hotel and nearby businesses were reviewed and proved that Barry had been in the area of Broomfield for about 9 hours and 45 minutes. So he had been there for a long time. But of these hours, he had spent less than a half hour at the job site. According to the footage at the hotel, Barry had remained there from 12:34 p.m. to 5:55 p.m. And this was entirely inconsistent with the statement that he provided to police.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being at the hotel, but you said you were at the job site.
So besides his 2 brief visits that he paid to the job site, electronic evidence and cameras depicted him driving around to various locations. And while he was in these locations, he was discarding unknown items in random trash cans. So when faced with this information, Barry claimed that it was something that he did routinely in order to avoid paying to have trash disposed at a landfill, that he was using various dumpsters, etc.
Yeah, it's illegal to dump. And he's like, oh, so, okay, yeah, you got me on my dumping. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, so you got me.
Yeah.
So when asked about his relationship with his wife, because of course investigators are going to want to establish that, what kind of a marriage did you guys have, Barry?
The moment the investigators come to the room, be like, tell me more about your relationship.
Right.
He's like, uh-oh, I'm screwed.
So he said that their marriage was the best. So when they asked him if Suzanne, if she was asked that same question, would she have described it in the same way? And he said, absolutely, yes, she would.
Now you got to ask the kids.
Of course, they're going to start talking about those that are close to the couple and those that know them.
Neighbors, yeah.
Maybe not even the neighbors, because they had only been in Colorado since 2018. So maybe friends from Indiana.
Yep.
So, however, as investigators began speaking with friends and family of Suzanne and Barry's, they learned that this was absolutely not the case, as Suzanne had actually been confiding in people that she was very close with, that she was highly unhappy in her marriage and the weeks and months that were leading up to her disappearance. So, according to Suzanne's close friend, she had actually been planning to divorce Barry, and she had been maintaining documents and notes that outline the issues of the relationship. And a lot of people do that because they want to keep the facts straight, because when you're highly emotional or distressed, oftentimes your thoughts get muddled. Yeah. And she wanted to keep a clear documentation of why she was feeling the way that she did. So these documents were recovered from electronic devices as well as from a physical search of the Morphew home. She sent her friend a text in March about how Barry refused to speak of divorce and was begging for another chance. Suzanne wrote, I'm so torn, but in my heart, I know who he is. She also texted that she felt no peace when she was home and she didn't feel safe when she was there at the house alone with him. Her text messages also proved that her daughters were aware of the issues that her parents were having. And of course, they, when you're living in a home and they're teenagers or, young ladies, you can see and sense things that are going on.
Well, yeah, we have a great marriage. And when we're fighting once in a while, the kids can tell there's tension.
Right. So according to Suzanne's sister, this is Melinda, Suzanne described her husband as narcissistic, a liar, an adulterer, a bully, cunning, someone who loves money and treats his wife and daughters like trophies. Suzanne had actually sent Melinda a long text on Friday. This would have been a couple of days before she was reported missing. So this text basically said that Barry was both emotionally and physically abusive toward her. And she was angry. She was very angry that in the 26 years that they had been married and even longer that they had been dating, that she had kind of allowed the things to go on that had gone on. Melinda admitted that her sister was codependent with Barry and had been a submissive housewife who was a gentle soul during the time that they lived in Indiana. She allowed him to control the finances. She often put up a front as if they were happy together. And meanwhile, Barry was more controlling and domineering. And usually controlling and domineering people look for partners that are more submissive.
Yeah, and slowly break them down.
Right.
And people that are people pleasers. And it's like, slowly it's just like you get used to it. You're like, okay, this isn't so bad. And I want to keep my marriage together, so I'm just going to bite my tongue and whatever. And then before you know it, 5-10 years down the road, you're absolutely just doing whatever this person says, and you find yourself in an abusive relationship. And
Right.
It's really sad.
And Suzanne had been a middle school teacher, but she stepped back to help raise her kids. And that's putting a lot of power in one person's hands if he's the one making the money and controlling the money. And it should never be looked at like that. It should be that this is our money because you're working as the greater good of a family.
That's what we say, even with our kids. It's like, this is our team's money.
Right.
Like this is, you're able to use our team's money because we're all part of the same team. Now, you have to have special privileges if it's a lot or whatever.
Right.
But like, we're all together. We're all doing this together.
Exactly. And I always think in these cases, I don't know what Barry was thinking when he's telling the investigators the things he tells them. Like, did he think they were just going to take it for face value and not dig any deeper? Like, how's your marriage? The best.
Interesting. These text messages that she sent to her sister say otherwise,
Right.
dumbass. Like, this is 2020, man. You can't get away with this stuff.
No. So according to a forensic download of Barry's cell phone, he deleted a text chain that he had with Suzanne, but there was still a single screenshot of a single text message that was saved to his phone. It came through on Wednesday, May 6th. This is 4 days before she was reported missing. So the image showed a text from Suzanne that read, "I'm done. I could care less what you're up to and have been for years. We just need to figure this out civilly." So when he says that his marriage was the best, it's a flat out lie.
Yep.
She sent a text that was indicating she wants to figure this out civilly and split up. So according to Barry, Suzanne began abusing antidepressants. And of course, he's coming out with this information after he can no longer deny that there are issues happening.
Grasping for straws. What else can I say? What can I bring to the table?
And I hate that the other person's not here to be able to defend themselves or say whether or not this is true.
Yeah, for instance, she's not here to say how bad your marriage was,
Right.
but her text did.
So Suzanne, according to Barry, had begun abusing antidepressants as well as alcohol as a way to escape the stress of dealing with her cancer diagnosis and her subsequent treatments. So this, when he said when she was drinking, it would escalate their arguments and she would accuse him of being controlling. Well, probably because you're controlling Barry.
Yeah.
So her alcohol use had escalated in the last 3 months to the point that he said that she was drinking on a nightly basis. He said that their last argument was on Friday morning, but they were never physically abusive toward one another. Again, that's his side of the story. Suzanne's text to her sister said that he was both physically and emotionally abusive. So a search for Suzanne began on Monday morning on May 11th, starting at the Morphew home, and it spanned days. So both the home and the car showed no sign of a break-in or an intruder. They found a locked gun safe inside the garage, and it contained a dart rifle, otherwise known as a tranquilizer gun. And it was positioned toward the front of the safe, and there were also packages of tranquilizer darts that contained capped hypodermic needles that were designed to load the darts with the tranquilizer solution in it. So now when investigators are checking the house, they're looking inside the dryer, and they found that there was a cap from one of the hypodermic needles in the home's dryer. It was for the tranquilizer dart.
Man, I haven't heard about tranquilizers since like 1980s TV shows.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're a hunter, it might be something that you're familiar with. We don't hunt, so I wouldn't have a clue. So amongst this clothing, there was a pair of shorts that matched what Barry was seen wearing on surveillance video on Saturday, less than an hour before he would have gotten back home that Saturday afternoon. However, he claimed that he had absolutely no idea how the cap to the hypodermic needle had gotten into the dryer. So Barry admitted that he was an experienced tranquilizer dart gun shooter. He was very familiar with loading the darts with paralyzing chemicals. He indicated that he used them illegally to sedate deer in order to remove their antlers, and he would sell these antlers. So according to Barry's friends from Indiana, when he was living there, he was a deer hunter, and he used a specific tranquilizer that was called BAM. He would use this to sedate and transport deer on his deer farm. So Barry admitted to using BAM in both Indiana as well as Colorado as recently as April of 2020. This would have been 1 month before. He said he used it to tranquilize a deer near their house. So he told investigators that they would find tranquilizer darts around the property of where his home was because this is his words. I came here and I saw deer in my yard with big horns. I'm like, I'm getting them horns. And I'll tell you exactly what I did. I shoot them. They go to sleep. I cut their horns off. That sounds so barbaric to me.
Well, I mean, deer lose their horns, I think, every season. You can tell me if I'm wrong or not, but I'm pretty sure they lose their horns almost every season.
I have no idea. So investigators soon learned that Suzanne had been having a secret affair with an old acquaintance who lived out of state, and they communicated using WhatsApp and LinkedIn. So her last known message was sent to this man. So the last message she ever sent was to this guy on Saturday, May 9th, 2020 at 2:11 p.m. So this was the day before she was reported missing. So she sent her last message at 2:11 p.m. This is about 32 minutes before Barry came home that day. So searches of Suzanne's electronic devices and social media prove that she had not communicated with anyone after 2:11 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. Her last possible activity on any account protected by password access was at 3:08 p.m., which was over 24 hours before she was reported missing. And this conflicted with Barry's account of events that, they spent the afternoon doing this or that. And then that morning she was asleep and he left at 5 a.m. on Sunday. This wouldn't have been consistent with Suzanne's typical use of her phone. We are all very habitual people. Our phones are always sitting with us. We're grabbing them in an idle moment. We're opening them. We're looking at them.
Well, especially like before bed and stuff. That's probably what investigators looked at was like, okay, what was her use case of her phone the last 2 weeks?
Right.
And did she use it the same way Saturday night, Sunday morning?
Mm-hmm.
No? Okay, that means she might, then they're putting together a timeline.
And I forgot what the statistics are, how much we average open our phones a day. It's a tremendous amount because we're just creatures of habit and we get used to doing something. So what they saw on Suzanne's phone after 2:11/3:08 p.m. was absolutely not consistent with her usual use of electronic devices. Those that texted or tried to otherwise communicate with Suzanne after this point in time indicated that her lack of response was highly out of the ordinary because she was usually very responsive to phone calls and text messages.
One thing that stood in my head was a long text message to her sister, I think it was.
Yes.
And like, I appreciate a long text message sometimes because I don't want to get on a 10-minute call. I want a long text message. It's all there. And I was like, so she's definitely somebody comfortable with texting quickly. And that was her main form of communication.
Right. And especially on Mother's Day when her daughters are texting her to wish her a happy Mother's Day.
Like any mother, you're probably sitting there like, I can't wait to get my message from my daughters and my husband and everything.
Under no circumstances would she have normally ignored her daughter's messages. So 10 days after Suzanne vanished, investigators found a spy pen that was inside her walk-in closet in Suzanne and Barry's bedroom. So they learned that Suzanne's friend had actually given this pen to her in January. And this was voice activated. It records conversations. It's actually pretty high tech.
Yeah.
So the reason why her friend gave this to her was in hopes of catching Barry in an affair. Ironically, she accidentally recorded intimate conversations that she herself had with a secret lover that investigators knew had the name of Jeff. So Suzanne's affair was so hidden and concealed that it took investigators 6 months to learn the identity of this man.
Wow.
So in November of 2020 is when they finally tracked him down, and they came to find that Jeff Libler lived in Michigan. He had a wife and he had 6 children. So he was someone that Barry and Suzanne knew from high school. They actually went to high school with him. And then he and Suzanne had a one-time fling during college. But then they grew apart. So it's many, many years that they've grown apart, close to 30 years. So 1 month after Suzanne and Barry and Macy relocated to Colorado in 2018 in order to be closer to Mallory, out of the blue, Suzanne sent him a Facebook message, and it read, "Howdy, stranger." So this one message changed the trajectory of everything and opened the floodgates to the relationship. So it's likely they really hadn't kept in contact for close to 30 years. And now all of a sudden this howdy stranger is opening the door and they are communicating now moving forward on a daily basis. And then eventually they began meeting up in person starting in 2019. So they met in various places: New Orleans, Indianapolis, Dallas, Michigan, Florida. Eventually, they did have consensual sex. I will tell you, they definitely were in love. They expressed their love for one another.
Yeah, so she wasn't innocent, but she also didn't kill anybody.
No, she did not. So throughout their communications, they did send intimate photos to one another. They discussed getting married. They even mentioned possibly at one point in time leaving the United States, maybe going to Ecuador. So after Suzanne vanished, Jeff never came forward on his own accord because, like I said, it took investigators 6 months to figure out his identity.
Well, I mean, you're probably like, okay, I don't want to raise any suspicion. Like, if they're all just going to take care of it. I mean, he's obviously heartbroken,
Of course,
clearly he loved her
course.
and he wanted a life with her. But I mean, yeah.
At the same time, he has a wife and 6 kids that are completely unaware of any of this.
Yeah.
So he did make attempts to hide their affair. So he later told agents that he did not want to tarnish Suzanne's memory, and he was also worried that he would lose his family and his job if, their nearly 2-year affair came to light.
Now, Jeff is a piece of garbage for cheating on his wife and kids. Let's not forget that. But at the same time, I also appreciate him not coming out with it and being like, then his, Suzanne's daughters are like, oh, my mom was cheating on, it's like if they never find out, that's fine.
I have a feeling he concealed it more for his own safety rather than Suzanne's, is my guess.
Yeah.
So, however, once agents located him, he was very cooperative. He provided his DNA, his phone records, as well as all of his passwords for deleted accounts.
He fessed up. He's like, yeah, take whatever you want. My life's ruined.
So phone records prove that Suzanne and Jeff messaged each other about 59 times that Saturday. This was more so than what was normal for them. At 2:03 p.m., she sent him a selfie while she was out sunbathing. They did get a little flirty, like, are you going to get naked for me type of thing. She sent this selfie through LinkedIn, and investigators dubbed this as her last proof of life photo.
Wow.
So we know for sure at 2:03 p.m. on Saturday, Suzanne was alive. Her final message was sent to Jeff at 2:11 p.m. This is 32 minutes before Barry came home that day. Barry texted Suzanne at 2:26. He indicated he was headed home, but it's unclear if she ever saw this message. So she never responded to the message that Jeff sent back to her at 2:44 p.m. So data from both Barry's cell phone as well as his truck prove that he came home at the exact time that Jeff sent her this message, which was 2:44 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. Once home, his cell phone began pinging all around the outside of the house. And investigators wondered if this was a moment when he was chasing Suzanne around the property before a final and fatal confrontation. So when faced with this information, because it's outside their property, just zigzagging.
I don't know. I don't know how that's possible. I would believe investigators, but usually cell phones are triangulated from 3 different cell towers. And usually the accuracy is within a few kilometers or, 100 meters. It's not you can't tell that you're around the house.
I don't know. In a lot of the cases I've read of and investigated, they can see where somebody is in the house and moving around.
I'm sorry to get too technical, but it's probably from Bluetooth connections and Wi-Fi connections because they had a 3,000 square foot house. So if it connected to something via Bluetooth across the house and they can do all 3 of those things maybe. So I'm sorry to cut you off.
And if you want to picture their house, it's not like a house in a neighborhood. We can shout out our patio to the neighbors and have a conversation. It was not at all like that. They had a lot of privacy, a lot of land. It was this mountainous home. So neighbors wouldn't have been nearby to see or hear what was going on.
So he could be running after her. She could be screaming. Nobody
100%.
knows.
So when faced with this information, he claimed to have been running around the property shooting chipmunks because they were a constant nuisance around the house. So he claimed that while he was doing this, Suzanne was just outside sunbathing.
Come here, you dadgum chipmunks.
So this was at 2:46 p.m. and only 1 minute later, he put his phone into airplane mode. And I'm sure this was probably highly out of the ordinary. How many of us put our phone in airplane mode routinely?
Only when I'm on the cruise ship or on a plane.
That's the only time. So, however, there was absolutely no evidence around the property to suggest that Barry was chasing and shooting chipmunks. So Barry didn't seem to know about Suzanne's affair, although by September of 2019, it was clear that he was growing suspicious. Apparently, they were on vacation in Mexico. He took his wife's phone from her in order to look through it. On May 6, 2020, this is 4 days before she vanished, Suzanne saved a note in her phone that Barry had accused her of having a boyfriend. And I'm sure in a relationship, you can pick up on signs that your partner is straying because they're not as present, maybe in your relationship.
For
Things
sure.
are changing.
Like you realize it, but at this point, I mean, in their relationship, it sounds like it was terrible. So I mean, I'm sure it was already strained before she even started talking to this guy. I mean, maybe she stopped caring too. Maybe she stopped like going after him and being like, can we work on this or whatever?
Right.
And like, especially he's so controlling. She was probably less like, oh yeah, babe, I'll do whatever. And then she's like, whatever, go to hell.
She had her foot out the door because she was in love with Jeff.
Right.
And maybe it was the move to Colorado that gave Suzanne the wherewithal to reevaluate her relationship and say, I'm sick of being controlled by this guy.
Yeah, there's better things out there. And, you know, he probably couldn't control his anger from being like, I'm not the king of the castle anymore. There's another guy getting in on this. No, I'm not going to have this.
And obviously that was the time when she sent Jeff this random out of the blue message. It was probably because she was mentally kind of done with her marriage. So since Suzanne sent Barry a text message on Wednesday saying that she was done, investigators believe that he took the opportunity to kill his wife and clean up any evidence while both of their daughters just happened to be away on this camping trip. So Barry's cell phone was in airplane mode from 2:47 p.m. to 10:17 p.m. on Saturday. That's a big chunk of time.
Yep, I think we got our time window here.
So it's likely that during this time he was disposing of potential evidence. Since they weren't able to track Barry's cell phone, investigators utilized digital forensic evidence from his Ford truck that was not consistent with what he was telling authorities.
I mean, every single new car has tracking stuff all over it, which sucks. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But in this kind of situation, it actually comes into play.
So despite the fact that he said that he was asleep somewhere around 8 p.m. on Saturday, data from his truck shows that it was put into reverse and moved about 96 feet closer to the house at 9:30 p.m. And this is a time when investigators believe that he was likely placing his wife's remains into his truck. So Barry initially told investigators that he woke up at 4:30 in the morning on Sunday. He left at 5 a.m. for Broomfield. However, the truck's computers show that doors in the truck were being opened and closed at about 3:30 in the morning. So he was definitely up before the time that he said that he was. So it's likely that he drove over to Broomfield much earlier than he claimed, but between 4 and 8 a.m., there was no activity recorded by his truck's computer. So Barry said that when he left their house, he turned left rather than right because he wanted to get a closer look at some elk that he had spotted. And mind you, it's pitch black. So because this was in the area of where Suzanne's helmet was found, investigators believe it was at this point in time that he tossed it out of his truck at that point. So Barry's truck resumed recording at 8:10 a.m. on Mother's Day. This is a time when Barry's phone was also taken out of airplane mode. So during this time, he pulled over at a Broomfield bus stop and discarded something in a trash can. He stopped at other nearby trash cans, including one at the hotel, at McDonald's, and a Men's Warehouse. And obviously, he was disposing of evidence at this point in time.
Yeah, and probably Susan's body.
Yeah, because you know that they didn't find the tranquilizer solution in the gun safe either, so it's likely he was getting rid of that. So before Barry left the hotel in Broomfield to head home, because of course at this point in time he's getting phone calls from the neighbor and his daughters that Suzanne is not there and she's reported missing, he stopped off and dropped a shovel off and some tools for his coworkers. He got in touch with them, said, I have to head home. There's a family emergency. And during this time, he also made arrangements to have one of his coworkers take over his hotel room at the Holiday Inn because he wasn't going to be staying there. When they checked into the room, they noticed a very strong odor of chlorine or bleach. So during his drive back to Salida, Barry spoke with investigators. They were letting him know, hey, we found Suzanne's bike. So he arrived at the ravine in question where her bike was located at 8:40 p.m. According to investigators, he was rather emotional for a few minutes. He brought on the waterworks. So Macy and Mallory, they were back home by Sunday night, while Barry was then offering a $100,000 reward for information that could lead to finding his wife. This was later doubled to $200,000. He also made a public plea for her safe return. So searches for Suzanne continued. Scuba divers were utilized. They were searching local waterways. There were local state authorities, the FBI, CBI, volunteers. A lot of people were conducting large search efforts across this very vast, rugged landscape. It's not like where we live in the suburbs of Tampa where it's not at all like where they are. There are ravines and mountains and
Oh yeah,
trees.
it's real woods. Like this is deep, deep woods kind of stuff. And yeah, all these resources being used when Barry just probably disposed of her body in trash cans.
So sad. So despite these extensive searches, days turned into months and months turned into years. There was still no sign of Suzanne. Authorities presumed that she was dead, while Barry maintained, he remained at the center of the investigation. Police were looking at this guy like the sole suspect,
100%.
obviously.
He's the guy. Just got to figure out how.
Right, how and get all the evidence,
yeah.
because at this point in time, no arrest had been made. Investigators found a vertical crack along the door frame of Barry and Suzanne's bedroom, and they contacted the home's previous owners to ask them, was this here when you sold the house? They confirmed that it had not been there when they sold the Morphews their home in 2018. Barry denied having any idea how the crack came to be, while investigators looked at it and theorized that Barry may have damaged the doorframe as he tried to overpower his wife with the tranquilizer gun. So based on the evidence collected, investigators theorized that when Barry came home on Saturday afternoon, he went into the garage, he took the cap off of the tranquilizer syringes in order to load the gun, and then he put that cap in the pocket of his shorts. Although they failed to find a working tranquilizer gun or chemicals inside the home or the safe, they believe that he shot Suzanne, rendering her incapacitated, and later discarded the gun and the chemicals in the various garbage bins that he stopped at on Sunday. So according to experts, it could take between 4 and 20 minutes for an animal the size of a deer to drop after being shot with a tranquilizer dart. So the average female deer or doe weighs anywhere from 80 to 120 pounds, while a male deer or a buck can weigh as much as 200 pounds or more. According to Suzanne's case file, she was about 5'4" and 120 pounds. And for a human being, a shot with the tranquilizer gun can be lethal. Investigators theorize that when Barry's phone was being, pinging erratically around the house, this is the point that he was chasing her with the tranquilizer gun and shot her. So authorities photographed scab scratch marks that were on Barry's arm 3 days after Suzanne vanished, and this only reinforced the idea that there was a physical altercation and Suzanne had tried to fight back. However, when questioned about these scratches, Barry said that he had gotten them from a tree while they were out innocently hiking. So despite the fact that Suzanne's body had yet to be found, Barry was arrested on May 5th, 2021. This is a little less than 1 year after Suzanne vanished. He was charged with first-degree murder, tampering with physical evidence, and attempting to influence a public servant, and he pleaded not guilty to all charges. So Barry hired a high-profile lawyer from Denver while a preliminary hearing was held to determine if there was enough evidence to even go to trial. The defense argued that the clear cap that was found inside the dryer was not of any significance since there was no way to say how long it had even been there. I'm sorry, if anyone knows how it is when you have a plastic item in their dryer and it's going around and you hear it, number one thing I want to do is find that damn thing.
Right.
Because I'm like, that clicking or whatever, it's driving me crazy. So odds are it had been in those shorts that he was seen on surveillance wearing. So they also pointed out that Suzanne's DNA was found on the cap and not Barry's. Although one of the managers from the Holiday Inn, in terms of that idea that the coworker checked into the room and smelled that strong smell of bleach, they said that that was because it was positioned above the indoor pool and that it always smelled that way. So, that may have always been the case and had nothing to do with this. So a crucial issue in the prosecution that they had to deal with was that they uncovered by their own forensic team. So while they were searching Suzanne's Range Rover, they found mysterious male DNA on her glove box. In October of 2020, the DNA was actually a partial match to an unnamed man, that's connected to 3 unsolved sexual assault cases that happened in Tempe, Phoenix, and Chicago.
Wow.
So they're not sure how the DNA got into Suzanne's car, Was it just a random thing that this man was a mechanic and working on her car? Possibly. Or was Suzanne a victim of a serial rapist?
Well, did they look into this man and see where he was living?
I don't know, because all I know him is he's an unnamed man.
Yeah, well, maybe they name him and go find where he is.
Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
So the latter scenario that, she was a victim of a serial rapist is very unlikely because her bike and helmet were found discarded. Her Range Rover was just parked in the garage when she went missing. So in September of 2021, Judge Patrick Murphy named 3 different scenarios of what could have potentially happened. Suzanne left willingly, Barry killed her, or someone else entirely abducted and killed her. So despite the fact that Suzanne had discussed moving to Ecuador with Jeff, her family and friends maintain that not in a million years would she ever have just disappeared off the grid and not let her daughters and her close friends know.
That's something fun
not
to talk
ever.
about.
Yeah. Not to mention Jeff was still in Michigan with his family.
Yeah, so scratch that off.
Right. So the judge ruled that there was probable cause to proceed to trial while Barry's cash-only bond was set at $500,000. So on Saturday, September 20th, 2021, after a little more than 4 months behind bars, Barry was released from jail on bond. He left the prison with his daughters by his side. Macy and Mallory continued to support their dad, believing him to be innocent. Because what daughters want to believe that their father would be capable of killing their mother?
Right, and this guy being a narcissist, he's like, no, I would never. And yeah, he knows how to work people.
Right. So they attended most of his court hearings. They were very supportive of their father. So he was released with an ankle monitor in order to stay in Chaffee County. So on April 19th, 2022, this is 9 days before Barry's trial was set to begin for his wife's murder, Judge Ramsey Lama, who was replaced after Judge Murphy recused himself after defense attorneys raised questions about a conflict of interest. So the DA's motion to dismiss charges against him were granted without prejudice, meaning that the prosecution can refile charges. So the case was dropped and Barry was basically just released as a free man. So he and his daughters walked out that day. Barry was a free man. So this came after the presiding judge over the case barred prosecutors from using the most of the key witnesses at the trial as a punishment because they repeatedly failed to turn over evidence in Barry's favor. So this was basically their way of being punished.
Okay.
So in July of 2022, in a totally different thing, Barry pleaded guilty to forgery for casting Suzanne's 2020 election ballot for President Donald Trump. I mean, how ridiculous that he took her ballot.
I mean, I'm sorry to laugh, but it's a scumbag thing to do.
So he was fined and assessed court costs of $600, and he avoided jail time as part of a plea agreement. So in this case, he filled out his wife's ballot because he said, I thought Donald Trump could use that extra vote. He said he didn't think it was an illegal thing to do to vote in someone else's place.
No, why would it be? We should all just vote for other people.
So in this case, Donald Trump did end up losing Colorado to President Joe Biden by about 14 percentage points. So District Attorney Linda Stanley, she told the judge that officials believed that they were close to finding the location of Suzanne's remains. Court papers made mention of a remote and mountainous region nearby the Morphew residence that could be excavated once the 5 feet of snow melted. They thought they were honing in on the right location. It's unclear how investigators knew of this potential location, if they were able to uncover Barry's movements during this 4-hour gap in time on Mother's Day, or if they received a tip about the location of Suzanne's remains. We don't know. So in May of 2023, Barry filed a $15 million lawsuit claiming that he was wrongfully charged in his wife's death. And he said that this is something that has caused him to entirely lose his reputation as well as his integrity. He insists that he had nothing to do with his wife's disappearance, and investigators have tunnel vision, and they have only honed in on him and not looked elsewhere. And it was not until September 22nd, 2023, this is more than 3 years after Suzanne vanished, when CBI agents stumbled upon her skeletal remains in a shallow grave during an unrelated search near the small town of Moffat, Colorado.
What?
So they were searching for an entirely different person when they came across Suzanne.
So this wasn't the original place that they
No.
thought they might find her? Wow.
So this is about 50 miles or 80 kilometers south of the Morphew home, less than an hour's drive away. The location is so remote, and it is actually known as the Boneyard, and hence the reason why they were looking in the spot. So according to the affidavit, most of Suzanne's bones were recovered. Many were significantly bleached. They had been out in the elements, for such a long time. Clothing similar to what she would have worn to ride her bike were found, and a port from her chemo was removed by investigators. After the discovery, Barry issued a statement through his lawyer in which he said that both he and his daughters were struggling with immense shock and grief, as they had faith that their wife and their mom would walk back into their lives once again. Based on the status of her remains and her clothing, a forensic anthropologist theorized that Suzanne's body decomposed elsewhere, meaning that her remains had to have been moved at least twice.
Wow.
Now, this part is damning. So toxicology testing revealed the 3 drugs that are used in deer tranquilizers known as BAM were present in her bone marrow. So the coroner determined that her cause of death was homicide by unspecified means in the setting of butyrophenol, azaparone, and metaditomidine intoxication. This is BAM. These are the ingredients that, stand for BAM.
Wow.
So it indicated that her body had no other signs of trauma. And like I said, the investigators, even before finding Suzanne's remains, indicated that these ingredients were highly lethal to a human being.
Yeah, and Barry is a self-described expert in tranquilizers.
He admitted that.
We haven't heard ever. We've been doing hundreds of true crime podcasts. Never have tranquilizers come up. Ever.
Mm-mm.
Ever. So this was highly rare. This connects him immediately.
Right. So the autopsy further determined that Suzanne had not died immediately after being given the drugs because her body was able to start metabolizing the drugs in BAM.
Because she was alive, so
Right.
it was metabolized.
It was still able to metabolize. So since a prescription is required to obtain the drug in Colorado, records show that at the time of Suzanne's, the time she vanished, the only private citizen living in the entire area of the state who had access to BAM was Barry, the only person.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, this is damning. I mean, he's done.
So with this information, Barry was arrested for a second time on
Wow.
June 20th, 2025. So as this case comes out, this is only, months ago.
Really?
So he was arrested in Gilbert, Arizona, and he was charged for his wife's murder. He was charged for first-degree murder. So he waived extradition to Colorado, where he is being held on a $3 million cash bond. His trial date has yet to be set. So according to those that are close to Suzanne, who love Suzanne, she was the definition of a person who is beautiful, not only on the outside, but also on the inside. She had a beautiful smile, a huge heart. She had the ability to listen and tend to others. She was a wonderful mother. She adored her daughters. And that is a sad and tragic murder of Suzanne Morphew. Barry has yet to go to trial. He has yet to be found guilty. I am only presenting the evidence of this case, and you can say what you will and what you believe. But
What we know and what we believe is Barry is an expert in tranquilizers. His wife died from tranquilizers, and he was probably angry at her. And the last person to see with her was him. Based on his triangulation of his cell phone. I mean,
Right.
This is going to be open and shut. This is going to be guilty, especially because they found as long as they can prove without a shadow of a doubt that that is the tranquilizer. There's absolutely no other way.
Oh yeah, it's the ingredients of the tranquilizer
Right.
for sure that led to her death.
Well, the defense is going to be like, well, that could show up because of this and this. They're pulling.
There's no other reason the BAM drugs would be in your body unless you were shot with that tranquilizer. And, it's just sad because now these 2 girls are without their mom and their dad.
Yeah.
And that's just sad. So it's likely that Barry did not know about Jeff specifically, but he was definitely suspicious that Suzanne was straying in their marriage because he was always able to control her, and he wasn't able to control her at this point. And she was putting her foot down, and she said, I'm done. I am done with being controlled and manipulated. I'm done being your trophy wife. And he didn't like that because a controlling person does not want to lose control.
Nothing makes a controlling narcissist madder than being out of control and not being the one making the decisions for absolutely everybody. It's fun to watch, except when they kill people, unfortunately.
It's very sad, and I always just say, why not just choose divorce? Because how did Barry think he was going to get away with this when we have electronic data, his truck's data? You know, it's like he put his truck into, or his car or phone, whatever the hell I'm trying to say here, his phone into airplane mode minutes after he was chasing her around the property.
Yeah, but we know what you were trying to do there, buddy. Well, I mean, at the same time, he almost got away with it if they wouldn't have found her body.
Right.
So.
If they had not located, and I'm sure that's what he was laying it all on, was that they weren't going to find her body, because without her body, they couldn't have proven that her cause of death was from the tranquilizer gun, which is what investigators theorized all along.
I mean, people out there thinking about murdering your wife or husband, just think about this guy. He had to stress about this every single day, move her body several times. Yeah, it's a terrible idea, but clearly you're too stupid to understand that. But it's think about the after effects. You're going to have to keep on worrying every single day. You get a call. Oh, is this the cops trying to arrest me? Just don't do it. Just get a divorce, lose $1 million. It's way cheaper, way better.
And then you'll have a life still. Your wife's not going to be dead. Your daughters aren't going to be without a mother. And then you can go on and do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And now he's been lying to his daughters for 5 years too.
My heart truly breaks for Macy and Mallory. I can't even imagine the headspace.
Barry, you're a terrible husband. You're a terrible father. You're a terrible business owner. You're terrible at everything you do in life. And we'll see if you are actually found guilty. So I'm not saying you're guilty, but allegedly, I think you're going to the clink.
A jury will decide that, but I've just presented the facts to you. You can, deduce what you deduce.
Yep, let's deduce.
But I'm just sorry for the Morphew family and the loss of Suzanne.
Likewise.
It's very sad. But we thank you guys so much for being here with us. You are amazing peeps, and we appreciate you.
If you want to hear more of what we do, then go ahead on over to Patreon or Apple subscriptions. Get a free trial right now. Just go get a free trial. You deserve it. And leave us a 5-star review. And if you don't have the cash right now, that's totally fine. Just a free way to support us is by subscribing to us on your podcast platform or our YouTube channel. Any of those areas, give us a thumbs up, put a comment somewhere. It puts it into the algorithm. So just you can comment, anything that it shows there's interaction. Share it with people. If you share our show, just click share on Spotify or YouTube, anywhere. Sharing's big. So anywhere you see our stuff, if you can just share it, send it to somebody, send it to yourself. The platforms don't know, but give us a share.
But thank you guys so much. We hope you're having a great week, or we hope you do have a great week.
And are having one and had one. I also hope you had a great week. And then let's talk about all the weeks. Let's take 15 minutes and talk about our weeks here, folks. No, you're doing a great job. It's all good.
And until next time.